We are live.
Yay! Hopefully back on schedule. Um, I am old new dude. He is,
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
and hopefully you call it Sundays, rare Sundays live stream with the Green Bard. Big shout out to the Green Bard for jumping in with us on the last AGoT chapter. We appreciate it. This one is Arya 4 of A Game of Thrones, and for believers in the Hidden Fingers, I'm going to say this is like my favorite chapter so far.
Oh, it
But
seems like it's the strongest evidence for it, that's for sure. And, you know, Bran 4 sort of talks about how Bran is more almost as eternal as the stories and more eternal than Old Nan and so forth. But this one is really blatantly manipulative with, and it sort of ties directly to Bran as well. So it seems like it strongly ties this whole concept of manipulation back to Bran.
yeah, well, I made my notes, and then I read your notes, and then I didn't even bring my notes in here because you got everything covered.
Oh,
And I
good.
actually found a couple of things that I didn't find, so I was real happy. But if you've seen any of these videos, and by the views, you probably haven't. It's we start out with Richard, the brains of the operation, will say what he saw in the chapter, and then I'll jump in with my stupid stuff every now and then. Like I said, he got some outstanding notes on this chapter, so he's got it pretty much covered. But as usual, take it away, Richard.
So in this chapter, Syrio teaches Arya the lesson that Ned missed. Hidden Fingers speak directly to Arya and bring her a memory of protecting Bran. Arya confidently faces her guilt and her fears, and then Arya plunges deeper into the darkness. Hi, Syrio Farrell called out, slashing at her head. The stick swords clacked as Arya parried. Left, he shouted, and his blade came whistling. Hers darted to meet it. The clack made him click his teeth together. Right, he said, and low, and left again, faster and faster, moving forward. Arya retreated before him, checking each blow. Lunge, he warned, and when he thrust, she sidestepped, swept his blade away, and slashed at his shoulder. She almost touched him. Almost. So close it made her grin. A strand of hair dangled in her eyes, limp with sweat. She pushed it away with the back of her hand. Left, Syrio sang out. Lo, his sword was a blur, and the small hall echoed to the clack, clack, clack. Left, high, left, right, left, low, left. The wooden blade caught her high in the breast, a sudden stinging blow that hurt all the more because it came from the wrong side. Ow, she cried out. She would have a fresh bruise there by the time she went to sleep, somewhere out at sea. A bruise is a lesson, she told herself, and each lesson makes us better. Syrio stepped back. You are dead now. Arya made a face. You cheated, she said hotly. You said left, and you went right. Just so, and now you are a dead girl. But you lied. My words lied. My eyes and my arms shouted out the truth, but you were not seen. So this is juxtaposed with Ned being lied to, and now all but a dead man. Arya's being foreshadowed as a dead girl since everyone will believe her dead. No matter what misinformation you may have heard in 3 of the last 4 Maester Monthly podcasts, there is a Cosmo article titled The Big Reason Arya Stark Won't Get Killed Off Game of Thrones Anytime Soon, and a YouTube video of George explaining he is not allowed to kill Paris's favorite character. So I don't know why, but like each Maester Monthly for the last several Maester Monthlies was they kept saying that, oh, this doesn't exist, it's a myth and all this stuff, and you know it's not a myth. There's a Macy Williams interview in Cosmo. It's still online today. If you just search for that title, you'll find it. There's a YouTube video. You know, I've got a timestamp I tweet out occasionally saying, you know, here it is. You know, here's George saying this. So I don't know why they're unable to Google effectively, but they've turned their inability to Google effectively into like laughing at the fandom for believing in what George did in fact say. So anyway, I just like to always clear the record with that. But it does foreshadow her as a dead girl, right? She's believed dead. So and you know she'll be, and maybe she'll be one of these people that sort of leads a force back that rescues people. We've talked about this repeated pattern, right, of the Renly's ghost, the John Cunnington most likely, and his whole taking by guile. Ramsay was believed dead. So this pattern of like believed dead people, coming, and then immediately thereafter, some sworn sword of the person who was protecting the area that was under attack gets betrayed, and so forth.
Well, also you got the like kill the boy, let the man grow. The Arya Stark that starts out these books, she has to die. We'll never see her again from all the stuff that changes her.
Oh yeah, she's
killing Arya Stark to become a faceless man. I mean, there's so many ways that the Arya at the beginning of these books and the Arya that's in this chapter, they slowly die as it goes on and on and on.
And people always say, oh well, narratively Syrio Forel has to be dead. Narratively, Syrio Forel had to be perceived as dead by Arya and the reader. That doesn't mean that he has to. If he comes back, it doesn't erase his narrative role of being dead, right? So your interpretation of these deliberately ambiguous books could include an interpretation that Syrio Forel is fast, and we'll get there, I guess.
Yeah.
Syrio Forel was first sword to the Sea Lord of Bravos. Are you knowing how that came to pass? You were the finest swordsman in the city. Just so, but why? Other men were stronger, faster, younger. Why was Syrio Forel the best? I will tell you now. He touched the tip of his little finger lightly to his eyelid. The scene, the true scene, that is the heart of it. Hear me. The ships of Bravos sail as far as the winds blow to lands strange and wonderful, and when they return, their captains fetch queer animals to the Sea Lord's menagerie. Such animals as you have never seen. Striped horses, great spotted things with necks as long as stilts, hairy mouse pigs as big as cows, stinging manticores, tigers that carry their cubs in a pouch, terrible walking lizards with scythes for claws. Syrio Forel has seen these things. On the day I am speaking of, the first sword was newly dead, and the Sea Lord sent for me. Many bravos had come to him, and as many had been sent away. None could say why. When I came into his presence, he was seated, and in his lap was a fat yellow cat. He told me that one of his captains had brought the beast to him from an island beyond the sunrise. Have you ever seen her like? He asked of me. And to him I said, each night in the alleys of Bravos, I see 1,000 like him. And the Sea Lord laughed. And that day I was named the first sword. Arya screwed up her face. I don't understand. Syrio clicked his teeth together. The cat was an ordinary cat, no more. The others expected a fabulous beast. So that is what they saw. How large it was, they said. It was no larger than any other cat, only fat from indolence, for the Sea Lord fed it from his own table. What curious small ears, they said. Its ears had been chewed away in kitten fights, and it was plainly a tomcat, if the Sea Lord said her. And that is what the others saw. Are you hearing? Arya thought about it. You saw what was there. Just so. Opening your eyes is all that is needing. The heart lies, and the head plays tricks with us, but the eyes see true. Look with your eyes, hear with your ears, taste with your mouth, smell with your nose, feel with your skin. Then comes the thinking, afterward, and in that way, knowing the truth. Just so, said Arya, grinning. Syrio Forel allowed himself a smile. I'm thinking that when we are reaching this Winterfell of yours, it will be time to put this needle in your hand. Yes, Arya said eagerly. Wait till I show Jon. Have you ever seen her like? Each night in the alleys of Bravos, I see 1,000 like him. George is trying to tell us how to interpret his work. Most characters and readers aren't really understanding what is going on. George is the authority on his story, but only in the exact same way the Sea Lord is the authority on his cat. Both can be deceiving. George's words confirming an interpretation does not invalidate the alternative interpretations. This is a deliberately ambiguous story open to multiple interpretations, and George considering one interpretation valid does not invalidate the alternatives. Honestly, I'm not certain of the value of the concept of so spake Martin, given his instructions right here on how to interpret his work. Right? It's people take George's word and say, this is law, this is the one true interpretation. George doesn't intend there to be one true interpretation. George, like when George said, oh, you think Jon Snow's dead, do you? Right?
Right.
He's trying to tell you this is an ambiguous work. He's not saying Jon Snow's not dead. He's saying there's an interpretation that is also valid that Jon Snow is not dead. There's an interpretation that's also valid that Joffrey didn't know Valyrian steel so well that he gave away the only Valyrian steel blade that his family had. I mean, there's interpretation. There's an interpretation that's also valid that Ashara Dane is Ned's real wife, right? I mean, these are interpretations of a deliberately ambiguous work where George has deliberately left his options open. And could R plus L equal J? Sure. Could Joffrey have hired the cat's paw? Sure. Maybe. So I don't know. There's a lot of evidence against that one, really. But
you're getting another kind of feeling on that one.
Confirm that that's a valid interpretation. It's an interpretation he intended you to have. So it's a valid interpretation. Anyway.
No, I agree with you 100%. He's not. I mean, you can't have. He went left. He went left. He went right. He went right. And whoever reads it, they're going to go with, oh, he went left, and then half the people are going to go with, oh, he went right. And he told you both in there.
Yeah. He communicated both concepts. He communicates the concept to us that Joffrey hires the cat's paw. He communicates the concept to us that Joffrey doesn't hire anybody, that he wouldn't be hanging around with people that look lowborn, that the Hound is already willing to kill for him. He doesn't pay for anything. He doesn't carry money. Right? He's given us all sorts of reasons to see it both directions. Right?
Yes.
And Jon Snow could wind up being named in Robb's will. I don't see any of the evidence I should see for that. I don't see any of the reaction I should see for that. But it's ambiguous. He could go with that route if he chooses to. If it fits the story better from here. Right.
Well, just for that, the will itself, we do not know the last words that him and his mother spoke, and who he put in there. I mean, it's all like you said, interpretations.
We see Preston's. We see the reactions of Preston's interpretation of that, and say, yeah, that's what we see. We see those specific. That's the evidence we see is the specific reactions you'd expect from someone who the Riverlands would respect being in charge. We feel like there'd be a real emphasis from the Northerners on making sure those 100 men were sent, and they'd be really emphasized. Right? We don't see those things. We don't see it the way that other people do, but other people see it as clear that he named John, and I think that's an intention. Right, that's an intention. That's an interpretation the author intends you to have. Right, he intends. I think he intends both of those. And I do think that Catelyn and Peter might be named after like Catelyn the Great. I like to call her because she's being named as heir. Your father wants to see you. Arya took a step forward, but Sira Farrell held her by the arm. And why is it that Lord Eddard is sending Lannister men in the place of his own, I am wondering? Mind your place, dancing master, Sir Meryn said. This is no concern of yours. My father wouldn't send you, Arya said. She snatched up her stick sword. The Lannisters laughed. Put down the stick, girl, Sir Meryn told her. I'm a sworn brother of the Kingsguard, the White Swords. So was the Kingslayer when he killed the old king, Arya said. I don't have to go with you if I don't want. Sir Meryn Trant ran out of patience. Take her, he said to his men. He lowered the visor of his helm. So Syrio saw what the true scene. Arya may have been initially fooled, but she caught on quickly.
Yeah, you also catch that they called him the dancing instructor.
Uh-huh.
That means they know that Arya is taking dancing lessons, or that Arya is with the dancing instructor.
Right.
I mean, somebody told them.
But they really do think that he's just a dancing master. Apparently, it just seems that way.
Well, I mean, someone had to tell him that Arya has a dancing master, a dancing instructor.
Right.
That she's with. Huh?
Right, and it might have come from Sansa, right?
Right.
You are quick for a dancing master, said Sir Meryn. You are slow for a knight, Syrio replied. Hold the Verboti and bring me the girl, the knight in the white armor commanded. So as we hear in the next chapter, they really are killing everyone, and with explicit orders of kill the Bravosi. I kind of lean against the Marion arrested Ciro interpretation, which I've heard the argument of, oh, Marion Trant's not that bad a guy. He would have just arrested him. Well, he specifically says kill. He's probably not going to back off on that based on how he's like gouging out eyeballs and killing people here and so forth, right? So it's probably not it's not my interpretation that Sir Marion would arrest him, but I've heard that argument, and the argument that he's so dangerous that he would be in the black cells, and therefore, right, that's how he got there, and and so that interpretation it's a reasonable interpretation. I don't share it, but it's a reasonable interpretation. My interpretation would be that he would run away, but
right.
We do get the quick against slow observation, and we're specifically shown that Ciro lies. So why would he announce I'm not going to run and then just fight when he's already observed how slow his opponent is and so forth?
I mean, yeah, I have the he's one of the characters that you like so much that please don't let this man be dead. It's kind of
probably be left at best ambiguous, right? He's probably not going to. I think George wants to leave a lot of ambiguity because he likes the different interpretations, and he likes people having different interpretations. Right? I think he would really like Preston's Quentin is Alive video, because he's as demonstrated by him basically begging the Order of the Green Hand to make their Jon Snow is Alive video, right?
Right.
He wants there to be multiple interpretations. He's put an axe to the back of Arya's head. He's thrown Bran out a window. He's burned Mance Rayder in front of us. He wants us to realize that people aren't always dead when you think they're dead.
Yeah.
Swift as a deer, she whispered. Just so, said Ciro Forellis, the Lannisters closed. Sounds like the words of a man who believes in rapid strategic retreats. Look with your eyes, he had said. She saw the knight in his pale armor, head to foot, legs, throat, and hands sheathed in metal, eyes hidden behind his high white helm, and in his hand cruel steel. Against that, Ciro in a leather vest with a wooden sword in his hand. Ciro, run, she screamed. The finest sword of Braavos does not run. But he has been known to shout falsehoods to mislead his foes. Swift as a deer, quiet as a shadow, fear cuts deeper than swords. Quick as a snake, calm as still water, fear cuts deeper than swords. Strong as a bear, fierce as a wolverine, fear cuts deeper than swords. The man who fears losing has already lost. Fear cuts deeper than swords. Fear cuts deeper than swords. Fear cuts deeper than swords. The grip of her wooden sword was slick with sweat, and Arya was breathing hard when she reached the turret stair. For an instant she froze. Up or down? Up would take her to the covered bridge that spanned the small court to the Tower of the Hand, but that would be the way they'd expect her to go for certain. Never do what they expect, Ciro once said. Arya went down, around and around, leaping over the narrow stone steps 2 and 3 at a time. She emerged in a cavernous vaulted cellar surrounded by casks of ale stacked 20 feet tall. So the hesitation on up or down could be hidden fingers, but we will see much more obvious intervention later.
Definitely.
When her head reached ground level, she peered across the bailey to the Tower of the Hand. The stout wooden door hung splintered and broken as if by axes. A dead man sprawled face down on the steps, his cloak tangled beneath him, the black of his mailed shirt soaked red. The corpse's cloak was gray wool trimmed with white satin, she saw with sudden terror. So blood is replacing the white of House Stark with the red of House Lannister.
Yes.
She remembered what the man with the yellow beard had said the day she had found the monsters. If one hand can die, why not a second? Arya felt tears in her eyes. She held her breath to listen. She heard the sounds of fighting, shouts, screams, the clang of steel on steel coming through the windows of the Tower of the Hand. She could not go back. Her father. So Arya's smart, and like all her characters, she's reaching an incorrect conclusion. Varys did not kill Jon Arryn. He's at least not the main or only person who killed Jon Arryn, nor is he responsible for killing Ned. Or I should probably say Dorcas, right? We're supposed to say Dorcas every time we say Varys. So
that's
Dorcas,
all right.
He's responsible for the alleged death of a hand named Jon, but not the one we think about at this point.
Yeah.
As she crossed in back of the wagon, a fallen chest caught her eye. It must have been knocked down in the fight or dropped as it was being loaded. The wood had split, the lid opening to spill the chest's contents across the ground. Happenstance or hidden fingers?
Yes.
In that instant of sudden terror, the only lesson Arya could remember was the one Jon Snow had given her, the very first. She stuck him with the pointy end, driving the blade upward with a wild, hysterical strength. First lesson for her first kill. She had to get away, someplace far from here, someplace safe, away from the stable boy's accusing eyes. Arya experiences a lot of guilt.
Yes.
So people say, oh, she's a psychopath, she's a sociopath. I don't think so. Arya realized with a sudden sick dread that the castle gates would be closed. Even the postern doors would likely be guarded. Maybe the guards wouldn't recognize her. If they thought she was a boy, perhaps they'd let her. No, they'd have orders not to let anyone out. It wouldn't matter whether they knew her or not. But there was another way out of the castle. So that's pretty smart. And she really thinks this through. She realizes, no, I can't just pose as a boy and get out of here. I've got to find that secret passage that I went through last time. Calm as still water, a small voice whispered in her ear. Arya was so startled she almost dropped her bundle. She looked around wildly, but there was no one in the stable but her, the horses, and the dead men. Quiet as a shadow, she heard. Was it her own voice or Siria's? She could not tell, yet somehow it calmed her fears. She stepped out of the stable. It was the scariest thing she'd ever done. She wanted to run and hide, but she made herself walk across the yard, slowly, putting one foot in front of the other, as if she had all the time in the world and no reason to be afraid of anyone. She thought she could feel their eyes like bugs crawling on her skin under her clothes. Arya never looked up. If she saw them watching, all her courage would desert her, she knew, and she would drop the bundle of clothes and run and cry like a baby. Then they would have her. She kept her gaze on the ground. By the time she reached the shadow of the royal sept on the far side of the yard, Arya was cold with sweat, but no one had raised the hue and cry. This is about as blatant as the hidden fingers get. We've got voices that she can actually hear. We actually have kind of a callback to, Sam's one step and then another, or Jon going up climbing in the frost fangs, right? We get a lot of this one step and then another kind of stuff.
Right.
It's really, really blatant. This might be the most blatant intervention that we've seen.
It's the most blatant one that I can remember in the entire story.
Yeah. This time the monsters did not frighten her. They seemed almost old friends. So the last time she was here, she specifically said that the monsters were watching her and they did not love her. There was something watching through them, and it did not love her. So this is perhaps a different player of the game that's watching her this time.
Yes.
She heard the faint squeaking of rats and glimpsed a pair of tiny glowing eyes on the edge of the light. But rats did not scare her. Other things did. So that's a really interesting foreshadowing of other things scaring her. Okay, we're going to wrap this up with a really long quote because it combines the stable boy guilt with Arya's first experience with the crypts. It implies Bran as the hidden fingers, and it concludes with Arya confidently plunging deeper into the darkness.
There you go.
She could almost see the stable boy standing against the wall, his hands curled into claws with the blood still dripping from the deep gashes in his palms where Needle had cut him. He might be waiting to grab her as she passed. He would see her candle coming a long way off. Maybe she would be better off without the light. Fear cuts deeper than swords, the quiet voice inside her whispered. Suddenly Arya remembered the crypts at Winterfell. They were a lot scarier than this place, she told herself. She'd been just a little girl the first time she saw them. Her brother Robb had taken them down, her and Sansa and baby Bran, who'd been no bigger than Rickon was now. They'd only had one candle between them, and Bran's eyes had gotten as big as saucers as he stared at the stone faces of the kings of winter, with their wolves at their feet and their iron swords across their laps. Robb took them all the way down to the end, past Grandfather and Brandon and Lyanna, to show them their own tombs. Sansa kept looking at the stubby little candle, anxious that it might go out. Old Nan had told her there were spiders down here, and rats as big as dogs. Robb smiled when he said that. When she said that, there are worse things than spiders and rats, he whispered. This is where the dead walk. That was when they heard the sound, low and deep and shivery. Baby Bran had clutched at Arya's hand. When the spirit stepped out of the open tomb, pale white and moaning for blood, Sansa ran shrieking for the stairs, and Bran wrapped himself around Robb's legs, sobbing. Arya stood her ground and gave the spirit a punch. It was only Jon, covered with flour. "You stupid," she told him. "You scared the baby." But Jon and Robb just laughed, and pretty soon Bran and Arya were laughing too. The memory made Arya smile, and after that, the darkness held no more terrors for her. The stable boy was dead. She'd killed him, and if he jumped out at her, she'd kill him again. She was going home. Everything would be better once she was home again, safe behind Winterfell's gray granite walls. Her footsteps sent soft echoes hurrying ahead of her as Arya plunged deeper into the darkness. So you could argue Arya plunging into the darkness kind of implies that she's becoming a more of this sociopath that people complain that she is and so forth. But I mean, she's clearly got this guilt. She's just brave and she's going to face it. And her bravery comes from the memory of her and Bran's first trip to the tombs.
Right. Well, I think it's really telling that the Hidden Fingers that knew exactly what memory to pull forward for Arya to make her not afraid of the dark. And that's the tie-in to what you were saying earlier about it being Bran, because Bran was there at this moment.
It was the first experience for both of them.
Right. So he knew of this moment. He knew of this memory. So he knew that he could pluck it, show it to her, and then boom, she'd be fine.
Yeah, it does make me wonder, her talking about how the foreshadowing of her with the others, combined with the fact that she's basically his protector in this scene. It's an interesting combination of perhaps her helping to protect from the others and so forth, right?
Well, you got her protecting Bran that time, and then now this time it's Bran protecting her.
Yep. She made Bran not be afraid and dispelled his fear, and he's reminding her, hey, you helped me dispel my fear. It's time for you to dispel your fear.
Right.
So you want to talk about the finale of House of the Dragon? Let everybody know that we're
watching. I don't think we have anybody watching. We're getting ready to talk about the finale for the House of the Dragon. So if you don't want to know anything about House of the Dragon that you haven't seen yet, then now's the time to go bye-bye. 1, 2, 3. If you're still here, it's your own fault. Go ahead. I'll let you start.
Oh, I really like this episode. I don't know that I certainly don't know that they needed to make. I don't know why they decided to make Daemon so evil and so forth. I don't think he's really supposed to be this blatantly evil, and it's even in the biased history against him, he's not really quite this evil. But I really enjoyed it. I really like. I mean, this might be the best dragon on dragon fight we've ever seen on screen.
Oh, that was just freaking awesome. That with the scene from underneath, and you got that big old giant shadow just flying over the top of him. You don't even realize it. I mean, it was beautifully done.
Yeah, it was pretty clear that this was going to be the epic final moment of this season. For anybody who read the books, I think most of us thought this was going to be the climactic moment of the season. So it lived up to the hype.
Yeah, well, I mean, even before the which I was talking to the one on Twitter this morning. I'm getting ready to start reading Fire and Blood because I ain't waiting 2 years to find out what the hell happens. That's not no, I'm not that patient. George has me waiting for wins. I'm not waiting to find out what happens in Fire and Blood. But you got the Alicent misunderstanding the dragon prophecy that makes her do a move to put her son Aegon on the throne, and then you got, because she was all about, okay, Rhaenyra is the queen, and then now the misunderstanding, and then you got Rhaenyra looking at that page going, a true queen would protect the realm. I got to think about this. It's not actually, I don't know which way I'm gonna go on it. And then you got her her son being killed, and it's like all bets are off now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's two different misunderstandings on both of the female leads, and they are definitely the leads of this show without a doubt.
Of course.
Damon is a supporting character. Or I mean, Hightower, Otto, he's a supporting character. Allison and Rhaenyra are the actresses playing these are just freaking. All the actors in this show has been outstanding.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But Rhaenyra, I don't know her name. I don't know I know Matt Smith. That's the only name I can remember. But
Emma Darcy, and she actually I shouldn't say she. They actually are non-binary, and so it's kind of hard to keep that in your head as you're given how what a regal queen they make that
that birthing scene. Oh my God, that was. I mean, we started the episode 1 with a birthing scene, and you got episode 10 with a birthing scene. You could feel it. I mean, just watching the screen and her acting, you could feel it.
Well, and our introduction to Emma Darcy was another birthing scene, right? So we start off with the dramatic season premiere with the essentially the state taking agency away from a woman, right? And then you've got your introduction to Emma Darcy. Is her giving birth to Joffrey, right? Her third, and then we've got this one too, yeah. So
there's something I was wanting to say now I can't remember. Yeah. I forget who I was talking with, and if you're watching this later, I apologize, but it might have been devoted to Mariah. The there's not a connection. How we control the dragons coming from Viserys at the beginning of it.
Right.
Then you got Dany and Drogon bond. You see that.
I think their interpretation is maybe different, right, than George's, and some people are arguing, well, maybe it kind of develops and strengthens over time and so forth, and you kind of see some blatant of the dragons that have been bonded for a long time in this show. You actually do see them kind of reacting without even instructions sometimes, right? Like including in this episode with Daemon basically threatening them with his dragon while he's not even on the dragon, not giving any commands to the dragon. The dragon just does what he wants, right? So there's some question as to whether in the show, whether this is something that sort of develops over time, whether they're just being inconsistent, whether their interpretation.
We got those words from the king, who only rode the Black Dread, one time.
Yeah.
And then that was it. That's all his dragon riding experience right there. So he's not a dragon rider king.
Right.
I mean,
right. And I question whether it's even possible for a human to bond with two dragons. Like what? I don't think we've ever seen somebody have their dragon die and then they bonded with another dragon. And it kind of reminds me of, even though we know that the rules are kind of BS when whether it's George or Varamir Sixskins that tells us it's kind of BS, this idea that you can only bond with one wolf and one wolf can only bond with one human and so forth. Because he's not even consistent with it, right? I mean,
right. I mean, I could have took the wolf from him.
Right. So I'm not saying that it's absolutely true, but I don't think we've ever seen any of these dragon riders who lost their dragon turn around and ride a second dragon. I don't think that's ever happened in the histories.
Well, I mean,
but I don't think that's. I mean, if you're going to read Fire and Blood, of course, it starts way back at the beginning, basically, right? So it starts with Aegon and the history of their family and the Doom and all that at the beginning, right? And the conquest and so forth. So you can try and look for it, but I don't think there's any examples ever. So people are like, oh, he didn't claim another dragon. I'm not sure if he could claim another dragon. That's my point, right?
You talking about Daemon?
No, I'm talking about Viserys the First.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if he was bonded with the Black Dread.
I don't know. I was kind of interpreting. I'm wondering if, in fact, that he did, but that that the Black Dragon bond is. It's not clear to me whether the Black Dragons bond with dreamers or whether the dreaming comes from bonding with the Black Dragons. But he's clearly, at least in the show, he's a dreamer. And this show says that Aegon was a dreamer, and so people speculate that maybe Balerion was actually bound to the dreamer, right? So we have. So anyway, it makes you wonder if although it's not you don't have to be bonded to a Black Dragon to be a dreamer, because we see that Egg's brother is a dreamer, and there's no dragons around, right?
Well, I mean, to have all this skin changing going on in the Song of Ice and Fire, and to downplay it in House of Dragon, I think is a mistake.
Right, and clearly Rhaegar was impressed with the skin changing ability of Lyanna Stark, right? That's sort of what made him realize, oh, this is the one I've been looking for. One of the things I really like about Rhaegar is that he's able to recognize that he's the father, right?
Well, I mean, when it comes to Rhaegar and Lyanna, you got Varamir Siskins telling you that a warg can tell another warg. So, I mean, I'm assuming Rhaegar would be a skin changer and could tell that Lyanna is doing that with her horse, that she has those abilities, the warg recognizing a warg type situation, meaning that he was more experienced in it and knew what he was.
I mean, he definitely was. Despite people make it sound like he must have rigged the contest, but I don't think so. I think he really was pretty good. I mean, when Barristan talks about the previous tournament that Barristan actually wound up winning, right? He's explaining, Danny's asking, like, who did Rhaegar defeat or something, and he's like, he actually defeated quite a few really good jousters, and he lists these great jousters that Rhaegar defeated, and she's like, did he win that tournament? He goes, no, he didn't. He didn't actually win that tournament. Another knight won that tournament, but he did. He did wind up winning. The one where he crowned Lyanna. He mentions that one, right? But the implication is that whole story is about how there's no such thing as a warrior without equal, right? He's saying anybody could win on a given day. You can be. He's dismissing the idea that there's no one as good as Arthur Dayne, there's no one as good as Rhaegar Targaryen, and so forth. He's like, no, that's not quite true. There's a lot of people who are really good, and being really good, it can be enough to win on a given day, right? That nobody's perfect, and you just have to be. If you're pretty good, you can hang out. You can potentially beat the best, right?
Right. Well, I mean. I think Hidden Fingers played into that, because if we go to the Jorah Mormont, the tourney where he met his wife,
right?
You got a lot of Hidden Fingers going on. Jorah winning it, beating all those people that he beat, and then breaking 9 lances, and then the king giving it to him, and then him going to the father and say, "Hey, can I marry your daughter?" And by all rights, he should have been refused,
right?
And then mysteriously the father said, yeah, right. Well, the reason that took place was for them to go north and have to use up all the gold and then go to Essos. The whole reason was to get Jorah Mormont in Essos, and the reason that it was that woman in particular is because he loved her, and
her brother is in the story, right?
Yeah, well, she looks like Daenerys. If he's in love with that woman that looks like Daenerys,
we're told her brother is on her. Her brother has been sent to see her in the story. We're told specifically that her brother has been sent to go to her to get another fleet, because she's a paramour of somebody who has resources, a wealthy merchant or something who has resources, and so.
Yeah.
So her brother's been tasked with going to her, and the two of them are supposed to raise a fleet to protect Old Town.
Right, right. Well, my whole thing is that it was the only reason that took place and Hidden Fingers controlled that situation was
maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe it's
that
so
too. I mean,
to be an Essos, and maybe she needs to be there too, right? So my point is she arguably does have a role to play here.
So there's two birds, one stone.
Right. That's my point. Is I'm bringing it up because I'm trying to tell you that no, it's more than that. This was a move. This was a move that positioned multiple players to help with the scenario. Is my point.
Right. Well, I was thinking that Jorah has to save her from the poison, from the wine cellar. So what's the reason of him standing there watching this woman?
Right. Yeah, that's the more important piece. I'm not claiming that Lynette Hightower as being a consort is like the key. I'm just saying it's yet another a bonus to this action that took place and its positioning of them over there.
I mean, you took me to task on it because I look at this stuff with kind of blinders on. So I only saw the Jorah moment.
Right, and I'm saying it's both of them.
Right. I have to go back and rethink some of the things that I thought through the story and see if there is a second or even possible third reaction to the stone being dropped into the pebble in the river.
I'm sure how these things could create multiple things, right?
Yeah. You just blew my mind.
Another thing I always like to point out to people is everybody's like, oh, Euron's attacking Old Town. I'm like, and Earthwick is going to Old Town. So the Bloody Mummers are headed to Old Town for some reason, right? Now it's probably intended. It's probably their intent just to get a ship and go home, right? Go to Essos or something. But they could potentially be distracting some of the Hightower security at the worst possible time as Euron is attacking, or they could find themselves unable to get a ship to leave because there's been a blockade, or that nobody wants to sail because they're afraid of Euron or something along those lines, right? So Urswick the Faithful going to Old Town is also an interesting piece that he's told us about this multiple times. He says, "Oh, Urswick's going to Old Town. Urswick's going to Old Town. Urswick's going to Old Town." Right? He's the biggest leader left of the Bloody Mummers, and he's got the most people, and he's going to Old Town. And it's like, okay, it's like, what's going on there? I don't know, but anyway.
I've always just looked at the main characters, and you pointing that out has given me goosebumps like normal.
Yeah, there's interesting things going on. Is my point that that's one of the things I like about Preston is the fact that he's kind of tries to dive into some of the things, looking at the red wines and how they might be plotting to take over Highgarden, and just trying to look at some of the roles that he's actually got out there. Like there's all sorts of theories about isn't there like a Frey that's that people think might be an heir? One of the Freys that was loyal to Robb is
the direct heir of the first line in House Frey. There was a squire. It was Robb Squire. What is his name? Tipley or not? No, it's not that one. It's
the one that was mad that they made him go away or whatever, right?
Right. That one. Yeah, he's on the first wife's.
Well, isn't
he's the first wife's firstborn son for Walter Frey. So he's the direct firstborn of the firstborn.
It's like the Rosby, is it the Rosby ward or something? There's some other inheritance that people theorize might be him. Anyway, there's all sorts of. My point is there's all these little side plots going on, and they're kind of interesting when you start to look at them. That there's these details that have kind of leaked out where they kind of. Anyway, just something that one of the things that's so great about these books is the level of depth and the plots upon plots and the little side plots that are going on that you kind of sort of see, but only a little bit. And they don't stick in your head because they're not the main plot. They're not the main characters and so forth.
No wonder this crap, I can't keep it in my head because it's just too damn much of it.
I was telling Casey that if we ever branch out, the next thing we need to look at is probably Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun, because it's specifically Gene Wolfe had written a letter to George R.R. Martin back in like the early 80s saying that he thought that the key to a good book was something that you would read and reread, and it would get better and better on each reread. And it's so his epic fantasy series of the Book of the New Sun is one of the most respected fantasy series ever written. It's probably of the ones that are the top, 3 or 5 fantasy series. It's the one that's clearly for adults from a perspective of characters that are always wrong. Where you reread it, you read it and reread it and reread it, you get different interpretations and so forth. So if we ever branch out, which we got a long way to go, but if we do, that might be like next on the list.
We started out strong 3 a week, and now here lately it's just like pulling teeth trying to get at least 1 a week. So
yeah,
if we get 2 a week, we'll get Sundays plus today and then possibly Friday, I'd be extremely happy.
Yeah. Let's shoot for that.
And there will be a supposedly another Sunday special edition with the Green Bard. Even though it's not time for the last EdAr chapter, we got like 6 between this one and there's quite a few. But jumping to it's not going to hurt our reread on the other chapters, because it can stand alone for a couple of days. So hopefully
I've got a playlist on my channel of these streams, and I'll probably wait to add it till we actually get there.
All right. Well, that was Arya 4, Game of Thrones, our take on the Hot D. And like I said, the one wants me to keep him informed of what I think about Fire and Blood, so I promised him I would. And I'll do a once a week probably just on Twitter. I might talk about it on here. Don't know. Just to let him know what I feel about it.
You can always give me an update at the end of each one of these of where you're at, your read, and so forth. If you got you've seen and so forth.
That works. All right. Next chapter is Sansa. We should do it Friday, hopefully.
Sounds good.
All right. Quick goodbyes. All right. I have been Old New Dude. He has been
Richard York, Asher's Trueborn son.
And we will see y'all Friday. Y'all be good. Stay safe. Bye.